Admit it. Who's ever walked into something because they were texting? Shame. We are a shame culture around here. Everyone take notice. I'm sure somebody has witnessed somebody walk into something because they were texting, whether it be a pole or a car or something like that. And it's crazy how this little device can take all of your attention away from anything. I was watching another video as I was watching a whole bunch of YouTube videos on people walking into things, and they were doing a research project where someone dressed up in a gorilla costume and then put them in the street, and everybody who wasn't looking at their phone was like, gorilla. And then everybody who was on their phone had no idea what was going on, and then the researcher would pop out and be like, hey, did you see the gorilla over there? And they were like, no, because they're so intensely focused on this little screen in their hand, we all do it, admit it, we all do it, that they totally forget everything going on around them. And the number that we're going to look at today is a number that is the one on their phone so intensely focused on whatever they're doing that they kind of just forget everything. They don't notice the gorilla that's on the side of the street because they're just like, go. And that is the number that we are going to work around today. We've gone through lots of different numbers these last few weeks, and today we are going to go into none other than type 3. And type 3s are called the achievers. And I love type 3s, and type 3s are part of what we call the heart triad. So last week, Shane started with the type 2s, the helpers, and they are one of the numbers that are in the heart triad, so the 2s, 3s, and 4s. And basically, these three numbers all kind of function out of what they feel. They feel a lot in their heart, but there's different levels of feeling. So the 2s, they're very empathetic. They look at you and they're like, I feel what you're feeling, and I'm going to sit beside you, and I'm just going to help you along in this journey, and I feel what you're feeling, and I feel very deeply. And the 4s, which we're going to talk about next week, sneak peek preview, if you don't like sneak peeks, unplug your ears. 4s feel very deeply themselves. They understand the entire spectrum of emotions, and they feel all of them. But the type 3s, though they're in the heart triad, they are the least aware of their own emotions. Arguably least aware of all 9 numbers, but for sure in the heart triad. They are so unaware of what they feel and what they experience internally. So why are they in the heart triad when they have no concept of what a feeling even is? Because for them, feelings are just a waste of time. For a 3 to be in the heart triad is that they have an uncanny ability to read a room. They can look at the room, they're in the room, and they can feel kind of what the vibes are. They know what's going on. They can identify who plays what role in the room, who has a position of power, who's kind of like the weak link. They can read all this information and kind of get the sense of, is there tension? Is there joy? Is there, what are goal? They're like, I need this information so that I can drive things forward. And sometimes it can be for their own advantage if left unchecked, but sometimes it can actually be for good. So they have this ability, they're in the heart triad, they read the room, catch the emotions, so then they use that information for whatever they're going towards. So there is someone in the Bible who is probably a type 3 achiever. And again, all these numbers we can't necessarily call up and be like, hey, do you identify with being a type 3 achiever? Because they're no longer here. So we're taking a best guess that this particular person is a type 3 based off of what we can see in his story. And this person is Jacob. And Jacob is way at the beginning. He's in the book of Genesis, and his life story covers quite a few different chapters. But we're only going to look at 2 moments that he has, very significant moments in the life of a type 3 achiever with Jacob. And so the first moment that I want us to look at is in chapter 28, in verses 10 to 11. So it says, meanwhile, Jacob left Beersheba and traveled toward Huron. At sundown, he arrived at a good place to set up camp and stopped there for the night. So I have to take a quick pause, because it says that he stopped to rest. 3s, type 3 achievers, are terrible at rest. They don't understand what that means. It's like a word in another language. They're like, what does rest even mean? Because threes can get so intensely focused on the goal at hand and the place that they're trying to go and the things that they're trying to achieve that they're like, go, 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 go. Why stop? Because that's wasting time. So if Jacob is a type 3, I'm going to take a really big guess and say that he was probably walking, if not speed walking, if not running a marathon, literally all day, because he's like, I have a destination to go to, and I must get there as fast as possible because there are things to do and things to accomplish, and go, 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 go. Until he was forced to stop. The sun comes down, and he's like, oh, like I literally won't be able to see, so now I actually have to stop. And sometimes a type 3 achiever needs to be forced to stop to be like, okay, just sit. Just stop. So Jacob is forced to stop. And it's in this moment where he actually finally stops that God kind of does a little knock on the door and says, hey, Jacob. Because finally he's available. Jacob can't go anywhere. He can't do anything. Sun is down. He's just laying there. He puts his head on a rock, by the way, comfy pillow. And then finally God's like, okay, now that you're here, now that you've stopped, let me say something. So God talks to Jacob in a dream, and here is what happened in his dream. As he slept, he dreamed of a stairway that reached from the earth up to heaven, and he saw the angels of God going up and down the stairway. At the top of the stairway stood the Lord, and he said, I am the Lord, the God of your grandfather Abraham, and the God of your father Isaac. The ground you are lying on belongs to you. I'm giving it to you and your descendants. Your descendants will be as numerous as the dust of the earth. What's more, I am with you, and I will protect you wherever you go. One day I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have finished giving you everything I have promised you. So God has just spoken to Jacob in a dream, and he gives him this image of a stairway or a ladder. Now, what's so beautiful about this is that it really reveals how much God knows his people. He's the God of the universe who sees everything. He created everything. He knows everything. He's aware of all things at all times. He has this desire to just know us so personally, and he's like, you know what, Jacob? I know exactly what you need to hear, and knowing you, I know you so well, I'm going to speak to you in a way that you're going to understand. And so he uses this image of a ladder because he wants to get this message across. And threes, type 3 achievers, understand ladders. They understand there's a top, they understand there's a bottom, and they understand that the top is where you really want to go. So the top is the level of achievement and that level of success. And they will climb a ladder like no other. They will go, 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 because that is where they're going to get that achievement and what the success is and checking things off the list. And as they're climbing this ladder, it doesn't really matter what setbacks come their way. It doesn't matter what barriers get in their way. It's kind of like dodgeballs are being thrown at them all the time because that's life. But they're just like, I'm so focused on getting to the top, because that's kind of how I think is getting to the top, that I'm going to keep climbing. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to keep going. Just keep going. And that is Jacob. And another part of Jacob's story, to just kind of elaborate on this sense of focus on where they're wanting to go, part of his life that we won't dive into is that he worked for 14 years, it's a lot of years, for a man so that he could marry this man's daughter. We could call that love, or we could call that he was so focused on making sure that he could marry her. He would work for 14 years, and in those 14 years of working, he became very wealthy, because he's like, I may as well achieve some sort of wealth and success while I'm here. And he does that so well, because that's just the way that he thinks and the way that he goes. So if we go back to this ladder, not only is a ladder representing levels of success, levels of achievement, whatever word you want to use, we really have to get to the core of why does a type 3 achiever want to climb this ladder. It's not just for the sake of doing. They might think it is. It's not just for the sake of checking things off the list and getting another trophy or another gold medal. That's not really the core of why they're doing what they're doing. They're doing it because they believe that if I climb high enough on this ladder, I'm going to be considered more worthy. And if I climb just a little bit higher, people will love me because I deserve it. And if I climb just a little bit higher, I'll have more value because I've done something and it can go on my resume. They climb because they want, this is where my worth is found. This is where success is found. This is where my value is found. And I so desperately want to be loved as a human, and I so desperately want to have worth. I don't want anyone to say that otherwise, that I'm going to keep climbing and keep climbing and keep climbing so I can prove that I have some sort of worth. And as they're climbing and as they're trying to gain this worth and trying to gain this value, when they're interacting with people, they will morph themselves into who they need to be or who they think that the other person wants them to be, because they want the other person to feel like, I have worth and I have value and I'm going to give you what you need so that you can think that I'm valuable. And this concept of morphing and becoming who they need to be in the context that they're in or the people that they're with can be for appeasing the other person. It can also be for manipulation. They can manipulate people to get what they want. But I feel like all characteristics can have a positive and a negative. And I think the positive of this certain characteristic is that a 3, if they have a cause that they are working towards and a good, positive cause that they feel is the better for the better of humanity and maybe a mission that God has called them on, they can use this ability to morph themselves for good. They can become who they think you need to be so that you can relate to one another, and then they're going to use that ability to be like, I need to inspire you and motivate you to come along this ride with me. Because remember, they're very intensely focused people. They're like, I have a job to do, I have a mission, I have a place to go, I have things to accomplish, and I really want you on it with me, and I will do what I need to do so that you can come with me, and we're going to go together. Because they want to take people places, and they want to go, and they want to do it with you. But sometimes that morphing is not for good because they're trying to do it just to gain value and to gain worth. So for example, with Jacob, he was so convinced and wanting to marry Rachel and get his daughter that he couldn't be convinced otherwise. He was going, and he was on this mission, and he brought a lot of people along with him so that he could get where he wanted to go. He was so focused on this mission and gaining that value. So let's go back to this ladder. In Jacob's dream, God establishes where people are positioned on this ladder right away. He says, hey, Jacob, so we have this ladder. I know that you speak the language of ladders, but I need you to know where people are placed. He's like, first of all, I'm on the top, not you. I'm the one on the throne. I'm the one who has complete power. I'm the one who is over all things and through all things and in all things, and I'm the one at the top. Let's make that clear. And then he says, the angels, they're the ones that kind of go up and down the ladder. They move between heaven and earth. They're the ones who are moving, going up and down. They have access to me. They have access to the ground. They're the ones moving. He says, but you are on the ground. We have to make this clear. It's like you have no right to be on the top. You have no access or no right to be sitting on the throne where I'm sitting. I am the one that's there. You are on the ground. And it's not this like God's flaunting his position of I'm on the throne and you're on the ground and you're just going to sit there. It's nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with God reshifting Jacob's focus to be like, I know that you're probably focusing up here and thinking like, oh, I can achieve that. Like I can get to the throne with God. Totally. Let me just keep climbing. He's like, Jacob, that's not where your focus should be. I need you to think about what you can achieve here on the ground. And again, in God knowing his people, he doesn't just say, hey, Jacob, you're on the ground, now sit there and do nothing. Because if you tell a type 3 achiever to do nothing, they're going to peace out and walk away from you because that's just the way that they're wired. They just go and do. So God knowing that and knowing that Jacob as a type 3 achiever is someone who's just going to go do anyway, he said, okay, you're on the ground. I'm on the top. You're on the ground. Make that clear. And now I want you to go on a mission. And I want you to go with me. And we're going to go together. We're going to partner together. And we're just going to be on mission and go forward as a pair. And it's this beautiful sense of God being like, Jacob, I know you. And I don't want you to just do for the sake of doing, because a type 3 achiever will just do for the sake of doing, because why not? They just may as well go and do. He's like, I'm gonna give you a mission, and I'm gonna give you a focus, and I'm gonna give you that thing to look at, and you can just keep going, and we're gonna do it together. And he gave him land, and he gave him descendants, and he said, now use this, and go and be on mission and have this purpose. Because he was gonna go anyway, so you may as well give him some sorts of purpose. But what's crazy about this moment, right after the dream, so God has given him this clearly established where people are on the ladder. Then he says, okay, now we have a mission. But then as soon as Jacob wakes up, it's something crazy, and it says, "Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, 'Surely the Lord is in this place, and I wasn't even aware of it.'" Jacob had been so focused on getting to his destination, he was on his phone, maybe looking at maps, the GPS, and he was like, going, turn left, turn right, gotta go, 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 go. And then all of a sudden he stops and he looks up and he's like, oh, God is here. And I didn't even know because I was so focused on where I was going. He had no idea. And God was just being like, hello, Jacob. Like, I'm here. Like, stop. Stop trying to do this on your own. Stop trying to direct your own path. Stop trying to do it on your own strength. Stop running a marathon. Just chill out and realize that I am with you and I am in this place. And you were just so oblivious to all of this, and I need you to just be aware of it. And remember the fact that I am here too. And I'm the one on the throne, and I want you to partner with me in this mission. And Jacob just had no idea until he was finally stopped to be like, oh, right. But like all lessons, so Jacob is learning this lesson through a dream. We don't often learn our lessons the first time. Sometimes it takes a couple times, and God is very gracious with us in being like, I know we talked about this yesterday, and I know we talked about it the day before, but I know we have to keep relearning this. It's going to be okay. We can keep doing this. And so Jacob, though he learned this really powerful lesson in a dream, didn't quite stick. He has to learn it again, the fact that God is in control and he is not, and that he does have a mission, but God wants to partner with him in that mission. And in another dramatic fashion, God is like, all right, lesson again. But this next lesson comes 4 chapters after this, and it's in Genesis 32, and I recommend you go and read the whole story of Jacob. But basically, between 28 to 32, there's a lot that happens. Jacob has a really large family, and then he gets to the point where he gathers his family and he gathers his possessions to leave his father-in-law's land to go back home, and it's this big journey that happens. It's a very dramatic story. Again, I recommend you go reading it, or go read it. And so there's this one point on their journey back that Jacob gets his family settled. It's another evening, settled, calm, good. And then this happens. So in 32, verses 24 to 25, this left Jacob all alone in the camp, and a man came and wrestled with him until the dawn began to break. When the man saw that he would not win the match, he touched Jacob's hip and wrenched it out of its socket. This is very dramatic. I don't know if you've ever wrestled with anyone all night long and then got your hip totally removed. Pretty dramatic. But if you remember, type 3s can be very intensely focused on what they're going towards. And so Jacob had a mission. He was taking his family and going back home, and he was organizing all of his family and his possessions. And it's a very big journey that he was taking, and he would just go. But his ability to be super intense and super focused and super competitive led him to wrestle with a man who happened to be an angel of God all night long. All night. He was like, I'm not going to give in. I'm not going to let you tell me that I'm weak or that I can't do this. I'm not going to admit that I am getting tired. I'm not going to admit anything. I'm just going to keep going and keep fighting. And it doesn't even say that there are weapons involved. They're like hand-to-hand combat, like tumbling through the dust and going at it, punching each other. Who knows how bruised they are, or if there were any broken bones involved, but they're just going at it to the point where the man, an angel of God, says, I can't win the match. Because Jacob is just like crazy, very physically strong apparently, to the point where the angel has to then use his power to touch, just touch, Jacob's hip, and his hip was out. And in that one instant, Jacob went from being strong to being completely weak. He couldn't do anything after that point. He could no longer rely on his own strength. He could no longer rely on his own perseverance. He could no longer motivate himself to keep going. He couldn't do any of that because in that one moment, he was proven that he was just a human. He was just human. He wasn't Superman. He wasn't God on the throne. He has limits and he has lack of strength at certain points. And in that one moment, he had to learn that. Because for a type 3 achiever, to admit any sort of weakness, to admit any sort of failure is weak. Why admit weakness? But for a type 3, and so we can see with Jacob, is that to admit your strength and to think that you are strong is really to just forget that God's the one with the actual strength. And Jacob had again forgotten that God was the one who gave him the strength, and he needed to be reminded that, oh right, I am just a weak and broken human being. And in that weakness, he was completely exposed. He could no longer convince people that he was powerful. He could no longer convince people that he was Superman. He could no longer convince people or morph himself into whoever he needed to be for anybody. He couldn't do any of that anymore because he was just totally broken. He probably couldn't do a lot more physically after that. He couldn't bear the weight of journeying with his family forward. He had to let that go because he was broken. And this is a big moment for a type 3 achiever. To be exposed of your weakness and to be exposed of brokenness and to be exposed of the fact that you don't have all the strength in the world. But it's in that it becomes a partner in transformation. It's in that where God is like, remember we're doing this together? Like, it's in your weakness that I can prove my strength and I can give you the strength that you need to go, but don't rely on yourself because it's not going to work. So it's in relying on yourself that you're trying to gain that sense of worth, and it's trying to gain that sense of value, and it's trying to prove that you are worthy of love. Just stop. Stop trying to convince people of that, and just stop, admit that you're broken, and realize that you are worthy and you are valued by the fact that I say that you are. So if the core motivation of a type 3 achiever, is that they want to be valued and they want to be loved and they want to be a worthwhile part of society, if they're running on their own strength, they're trying to just prove that to people. But in Jacob's weakness and in Jacob's brokenness, he finally was like, oh, right. My worth is found in the fact that God says I'm worthy, that God says I'm valued, and that God says I'm loved, and together we can go forward, but I need to stop trying to just find it elsewhere. In Romans 5:8, it says, but God showed his great love for us by sending Christ to die for us while we were still sinners. We don't have to do anything to earn God's love. And this is big for a type 3 achiever. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to get to the highest possible ladder. You don't have to check off the most checklists. You don't need the biggest trophy room possible. You don't need to do anything to earn God's love at all. Because he sent his son, Jesus, to earth to die on the cross, taking all of our sins on his shoulders and taking it to the grave with him and being like, it's done. It's totally and completely done because I love you and that is it. Stop trying to convince yourself otherwise. Stop trying to earn it because my love for you is not going to change. And that's all God says. I love you. So stop doing this on your own strength and let's go together. Stop forgetting that I'm the one that's with you and I'm present with you and I know you and I want to do this with you. And you can go and do. I want you to go and do because that is a gift of a type 3 achiever, is to just go and to be on mission and live with a sense of purpose. But don't forget the fact that your worth comes from who I say you are. So if you're in this room and you think you might be relating with a type 3 achiever at all, maybe you know you're one, maybe you're like, I'm someone who likes to go really far and do a lot of things. I'm someone who wants to be valued for who I am. This is something that you probably need to hear, is that you are loved for the fact that God says you're loved. And Christ satisfies that. So your core longing as a type 3 is that you are loved and valued for simply being you. And Christ satisfies this. And if you're resonating with any of this, we have this posted in the office, and I highly recommend taking a picture. But he says that you are valued. God cherishes you so much that he sent his only beloved son to live perfectly so you can have his perfect accomplishments as your own. And he says you are loved. God created you to be your authentic self and to rest in your true identity, and he loves you just as you are. That's it. It's totally and completely it. If you are a type 3 in this room, just as Jacob had to learn, you are valued and you do have worth and you can go and do, but don't do for the sake of trying to earn it because it's already there. So if you're in this room and you don't resonate anything with any of this, you probably know someone who's a type 3. And as a community, as we're going through this series together, we want to learn to best love each other and to spur one another on. So how can we love our type 3s in this community or other type 3s who you might know beyond this? So 4 simple things. 1 is tell them that they are loved simply for who they are and not what they do. Because they will go and if they think that you just love them based off of what they do, they will morph themselves into who they think that you need them to be, and they'll just go and do and make sure that you're happy. But if you can just say, hey, just stop doing. Just stop, and let's just be together because you're loved simply for who you are. Make sure they know that. 2, remind them to celebrate the moments. If you remember, Jacob was doing this. He was going. He was on a mission. He was following his GPS. Go. That all of a sudden there's a party happening here and some crazy moments here and God's present over here. Did you know? And they forget and they're like, oh, yes, it's fine. Like, keep going. Type 3s need us to stop them and be like, hey, let's celebrate what is going on. Like, stop trying to get to the next thing. Stop trying to accomplish all the things. And let's just celebrate and let's just reflect and let's stop here. Because when you stop here and put your head on a rock pillow, you might realize that God is actually present. 3, create an open space for them to talk when they failed, real or perceived. And don't tell them if it's real or perceived, because for them it's always real. Create this space for them where they can just totally let their hair down and just be who they need to be in your presence. They don't have to convince you of anything else. They can just be and say, I am a broken and flawed human being. I don't have all the strength in the world, and I just really need to tell somebody. And then you've created that safe space for them. And don't give them advice. And finally, encourage them to lean into their emotions. So as I said at the beginning, they are part of the heart triad. They do have a lot of emotions and feelings and passions about things. They often forget them because they think they're a waste of time. Tell them to not forget them and to use that to their advantage and not just bulldoze over them. So this is a type 3 achiever, as we've seen with Jacob's story and all that sort of stuff. And if, again, you're resonating with any of this, you have been given a gift. You have been given an ability to motivate. You have been given an ability to inspire. You have been given an ability to just accomplish a lot of things. And if that is you, that is awesome. But don't forget to do it with God. God's not going to tell you to stop because he wants to use that with you. Although he might tell you to stop if he needs to get your attention. But use that for his kingdom and for his glory. And don't forget that it's his strength and not your own strength that you can rely on. Because eventually, your own strength runs out and you realize that you are just a human, the bottom of the ladder, and God is the one at the top. Let's pray together. God, I just continually thank you for just the unique ways that you've created us and the variety of people that are in this room and the people that are not in this room but that we know. God, you just are so creative in that sense. And thank you for that. And God, I just pray for any sort of type 3 achiever, but really anybody in this room, God, that we would know that our worth and our value and the fact that we are loved comes from just you simply saying it. That you say that we have worth and that you love us, and you proved that love for us by sending Jesus to die on the cross. And I pray that that would just become really deep and deeply rooted in our hearts today, God, because it changes everything. So we are just humans at the bottom of the ladder, and we are broken, and we mess up all the time, God, but you still say it's okay. And you still want to partner with us, and you want to transform us, and you want to use those places that you're weak to really show your strength, God. So I pray that this would just become a deep, deep reality, and that this place would become a space where we can be free to be our true and authentic selves, and we don't have to convince people of anything, and that we can just be and live out of the knowing that we are loved and that we are valued for who we are, God. Thank you for this. Amen.